welcome to another episode of the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast, and brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your favorite wrestling fan here, bidding you hello. It's been a long time since we've seen each other. Hopefully you guys are having an amazing week. Hope you guys are surviving out there in this world crazy world. Definitely hope you guys are getting your NCAA college basketball. We got the Final Four. I know right now in the information it says the live 4 number 1 seeds with Jeremy Lapidus. I'm sorry, I'm not as handsome as Jeremy is, but we're here to talk about professional wrestling. I do not know why it is not updating, but we're here to talk about professional wrestling. Something better than the NCAA tournament, something better than the Super Bowl, something better than the World Series, the Stanley Cup, and the Larry O'Brien Trophy. It is yours truly talking professional wrestling. So let's get and dig on into it. But before we do any of that, I just want to remind you guys to go ahead and hit up that tips and donations link or that super chat. Whether if you got a burning take or something you just want to ask about professional wrestling, or just something you're dying to get off your chest. Here at the GSMC Sports Network, we do love a lot of peace, love, and positivity. But, in terms of talking sports, there's going to be some disagreements. There's going to be some hot takes here on this podcast. Consider your hot takes absolutely 1,010% welcome. I welcome all challenges. I welcome all questions. I welcome all statements. If you guys want to take over and be the host, I can sit back, hang out, grab my favorite beverage, a nice cold beer, cold root beer for that matter. I'm just, anyways, moving on. So make sure you guys hit up that super chat. So don't be shy, drop your thoughts inside that chat. And if you really want to make sure your comment, question, or concern gets noticed and talked about on there, why not use that super chat? Go ahead and click that $sign. Anything you guys put inside that little chat box is going to be talked about, featured, even debated about on this show. Plus, it's a great way to support the channel. 1,010% here at the GSMC Sports Network. We do rely on your guys' kind, generous, donations that you guys, submit, so we can keep bringing you guys all the content that you guys love so damn much on this sports network. We are super grateful, super duper grateful for each and every one of you guys who joins us here daily on the GSMC Sports Network. Obviously, everything you guys, give makes a difference. So let's keep this party going. Let's get this party started. Let's keep the conversation going. Send in those super chats, those super stickers, because you guys are super awesome, and together we will make sure this podcast is the best wrestling podcast in the whole entire world. And of course, if the super chats aren't your thing, go ahead and hit up that tips and donations link at the gsmcpodcast.net. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. Just remember to Superman punch that like and subscribe button to the show to get some cool notifications when we go live, publish new videos, etc. Just want to make sure you guys are absolutely 1,010% entertained. So without further ado, let's talk about our first segment. Obviously, it just aired. We have our WWE Monday Night RAW review live in the London, England, the O2 Arena. John Cena kicks off Monday Night RAW, but he is doesn't even spare a second. Cody Rhodes comes out, the WWE Undisputed Champion, comes out to, and to being brutally honest, I was not ready to hear John Cena just feel sorry for himself, come out, be a hollow shell of himself, and just, keep talking trash to the fans. I feel like that's already done. So I kind of liked it how Cody Rhodes came out. Cody Rhodes, he brought something into the light that a lot of WWE fans, including myself, are speculating. That is John Cena really that upset with the WWE universe, or is he just, a seamless pawn in The Rock's bigger plan? Which, by the way, I feel kind of bad for the London, England, or just the Europe tour in general from WWE. That I'm like, you never really got The Rock, during this build-up of WrestleMania. You never really got a glimpse or a special appearance from Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So I thought that was kind of messed up. I was like, okay, I guess wait till we come back to the States, whatever floats your boat. So, Cody, of course, acknowledged to John Cena that he feels like he's been lying these past couple of weeks. He feels like, John Cena, maybe he's hiding something he hasn't said, what exactly is on his plate that's forcing him to ultimately, degrade the audience, turning his back on them, Superman turning heel and all that. John Cena, once again talked about burying talent. I kind of loved, I really liked how he embraced that because, he was right. He was right. The WWE Wrestling Universe has always kind of blamed John Cena of burying young talent because, during the Ruthless Aggression era, there's only one star that really shined, and it was John Cena. There was a couple there's a couple of young stars like Alex Riley, but, ultimately John Cena was the one to, come out the victor and still be the WWE champion. He was talking to Cody Rhodes, telling him he is his chauffeur. Nothing better than that. And, once again, he brought up facts. He brought up, once again, John Cena, cooking. He brought up facts about Cody Rhodes. How there's a lot of people in the wrestling media, cage side seats, ringside news, you name it. There's been speculations that fans have been feeling a little underwhelmed by this WWE Championship run by Cody Rhodes, and I'm kind of in the middle right here. When Cody Rhodes returned to WWE, I really didn't think of it as a big deal. My wife was really pumped about it, but I was like, I know he did a lot of stuff in the independent circuit. He started a wrestling company with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, and Tony Khan, which is funny because John Cena brought that up, and it was pretty cool. I loved how he said, "Hey, I've been building wrestling empires for billionaires. You have just been basically stealing money from their sons." Kind of alluding to the fact that AEW, but then again, AEW, since they lost Cody Rhodes, has not really been doing that great. They're getting better, actually. So something that I can credit Tony Khan to is, stay patient. Stay patient. Don't do any overwhelming storylines right here. I feel like, AEW is... it needs a rebuilding stage. It needs a rebuilding stage, 1,010%. And, I feel like what's going to happen on Dynasty, which is going to, in my third segment, we're going to talk about predictions. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But, back to Monday Night Raw, I thought it was a good promo. Overall, like I said, I did not want to see John Cena come out and mope and, being a hollowed shell of himself. Cody Rhodes, said, "Hey, man, you're still my hero, but to be honest, you're being a POS. A piece of crap. So, and luckily, finally, we got some violence in this storyline. John Cena went for a cheap shot, but he got caught up with the crossroads. And this is something that the rivalry needs. It's about time that I want to see John Cena kind of... I know a lot of people are ultimately expecting him to kind of, it was like... today? No, I think it was yesterday. It was a year ago. Sometime this year, around this time, it was a year ago that The Rock totally destroyed Cody Rhodes on Monday Night Raw. Left him beaten, battered and bloody in the parking lot with the rain, and it was crazy. It was pretty cool. So I don't want to see that. But then again, if it's something that's going to add a little bit of sustenance to this feud, which I've been ultimately kind of feeling like it's been lacking a little bit. And WrestleMania 41, look, it's going to be great. Every WrestleMania is, it's great. But with the matches and stuff like Jimmy, with Jay and Gunther not really hitting on all cylinders, the WWE Women's Championship on SmackDown, Charlotte Flair is overqualified to fight against Tiffany Stratton. And, that kind of hurts to say because I do love Tiffany Stratton, but, it just doesn't really seem like she's ready. It doesn't seem like that 1,010%. Charlotte Flair, whenever she gets on the mic, she rips her. She buries her, and it's crazy. So I want to see something a little bit shocking. I feel 1,010% this WWE Championship will be one of the most shocking moments in WWE history. And at this point, it's not that I want it. Well, then, I kind of do. I feel like it's what needs to save the show. It's something that needs to happen for people to ultimately, because you had Paul Levesque take over WWE during this Triple H Paul Levesque era and give you WrestleMania 40, which was an absolute bombshell. Cody Rhodes finishing his story, with the help of, The Undertaker and the help of John Cena. And the fact that you kind of have to follow up something, it's not easy. That kind of follow up is not easy. But no, this WWE Championship match is going to ultimately be, I feel like, the cornerstone with WWE heading into this new year. And I feel like it's going to be great. And, I hope it's going to be great. The rest of Monday Night Raw, we have Tyler Bate back after a 9-month hiatus. Torn pec. Sucks. Glad to see him come back. You kind of saw him team up with his old tag team partner, Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne has been causing, ultimately havoc across WWE Monday Night Raw. And, even on NXT, challenging Trick Williams. I kind of, sort of didn't really like the reunion. I know that, Tyler Bate, New Catch Republic, I like the tag team, but, you basically erased every storyline that Pete Dunne had during Bates' hiatus. And it's to the point where it's like, okay, like, so us as fans were just supposed to, accept this new tag team between Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, kind of refurbishing it, bringing it back to light. And we're just with, okay, so Pete Dunne, was a complete jerk, but it's a good spot for him. It is a really good spot for Pete. I don't want to see him fade away from WWE. I really don't. I ultimately thought he was going to go back to NXT and maybe win a championship or something. But, they kept him on the main roster, hoping that the new Catch Republic were, probably going to be. And this is something that the WWE Monday Night Raw tag team division desperately needs. Rey Fenix is going to be on SmackDown. There's been backstage talk that they're not going to reunite the Lucha Brothers anytime soon. So, we got to be patient. You have the New Day, which I'm going to talk, let's talk about it right now. The New Day picking up that victory tonight against the New Catch Republic. So now you have the War Raiders, you have the New Day, which after the match you saw a confrontation, which is kind of crazy because Xavier Woods was he was getting pretty personal with the fans out there. Like there was this kid on the ramp that was like he looked absolutely like discombobulated. He looked so heartbroken, because I think in their eyes, even the dad kind of looked at him. He was like, wow, dude, you're gonna really do that to the kid? So they take, they take it personally, which is good for WWE, saving face. So now we have a tag team division. Now we're probably going to get the War Raiders taking on Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods at WrestleMania. I would prefer WrestleMania, but knowing WWE, we're probably going to get that match, maybe the Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania or maybe after, which is a damn shame, which totally sucks. But then again, that SmackDown tag team division is going to be an absolute bomb. It's going to be a bombshell. It's going to be an absolute badass. I personally want to see, I want to see everybody going at it. I want to see Pretty Deadly. I want to see the Street Profits defending their titles against Humberto and also Garza of Legado del Fantasma. I want to see Motor City Machine Guns out there. There's all these tag teams that I'm like, it's great. There's, DIY. I want to see like a Fatal 5-Way or like a ladder match. Like a ladder match for the WWE Tag Team Championships. A Fatal 5-Way would be badass. Or Tungaloa recently has been cleared from I've heard, according to backstage news sources and stuff like that, that Tungaloa is, he's ready to come back. He's ready to make a, return after that horrific injury at WWE Survivor Series War Games. So, maybe him and Tonga kind of get back into the fray. Because right now, the Bloodline storyline seems like it is a little bit dull ever since Roman Reigns won the Ulafala back from Solo Sikoa. Then Roman Reigns took that, that hiatus that he was off of WWE TV for quite some time. And then he just had Solo just lose. Then he left, and then he was nowhere to be found. And then Jacob Fatu looks like he's going to take over as the new tribal chief. And then you kind of just have, you have Tama Tonga, dang it, kind of being on the back burner a little bit. So they need, if they want this storyline to fully develop and to continually kind of be in a cornerstone storyline in WWE. I feel like something needs to happen. Either Hikuleo comes out, Zila Fatu comes into the fray, or The Rock wrestles full time on Monday Night Raw, being like, "Hey, I'm the People's Champ. I don't give an F about the WWE Championship. I just want to be, the head of the table." So I definitely feel like that needs to happen, and I don't think it's gonna happen before WrestleMania. I don't think we're gonna get Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa. But this storyline, I feel like it needs a little bit more in depth. It needs layers. It needs some more layers. It needs some more meat. It needs some overall just talent, attention, and I feel like this is, then it could definitely blossom into something beautiful that is the Bloodline storyline that's been going on for the past 3-4 years. So, definitely hoping for that. Rapidly picking this up because I am, running short of time on this segment. Bron Breakker teams up with Penta, El Cero, Maido to lose against the Judgment Day. Obviously, misunderstanding. Backstage, Breakker was confronted by Penta. And, looks like it's going to gear up toward a fatal four-way match because you had Finn Balor kind of feeling himself backstage talking to Carlito, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Dominik Mysterio of the Judgment Day, saying that he's going to ask Adam Pearce to challenge for the WWE Intercontinental Championship once again. And, then Liv Morgan was kind of being like a little two-faced here, and then, she goes and she pushes Dirty Dom to kind of challenge, for the Intercontinental Championship as well. Next match, we have Gunther taking on Jimmy Uso. Jimmy Uso was absolutely brutalized. Gunther, playing the bad guy, chokes out Jimmy Uso, attacks Jimmy, gets him all beaten, battered, and bloody. He was even bathed in his own blood, Jimmy's blood. And, he tasted it, spit it out. He had the fans, screaming, "You sick, you sick." So I liked it. I thought that was pretty great. You ultimately have to villainize Gunther because for a little while there, especially after what happened at the King of the Ring, King and Queen of the Ring in Saudi Arabia, you kind of had people not warm up to Gunther, but, and then he kind of had this, I'm vulnerable, but I don't know who I am moment when he was, fighting Damian Priest. And now you have him as a full-fledged, complete badass, which is exactly what WWE should do. I feel like it's a little late, but then again, it's better late than never. So I personally, I can't wait to see this match between Gunther and Jimmy Uso, or Jey Uso. Now he's kind of fighting for his brother. But then again, you kind of had Jey zip tied, and I feel like if you're watching your brother getting absolutely demolished, it's a couple of zip ties, dude. You can break it, but it is what it is. It all part of the storyline. It was cool and all that. Gunther looks like a total jerk. Looks like he is, total bad guy. Like Michael Cole said, he was setting up the stage quite perfectly, actually. He said that Gunther, he's nothing but a bully. We have this man representing our company as the WWE World Heavyweight Championship is an absolute abomination. And, once again, setting up for, main event Jey Uso here. So I thought that was actually pretty cool. Next, we're going to find out Grande Americano is going to compete next week in Minnesota, the hometown of Chad Gable. So Chad Gable's that pissed off. We'll find out if he comes out and confronts Grande Americano, or if Grande Americano is basically Chad Gable. Logan Paul, is called out. He's called out by AJ Styles, obviously heading up toward a match for WrestleMania 41. Lyra Valkyria challenges Bayley for. She gives her a title shot because, A, Bayley, watches her back 24/7, and B, Bayley was the last one to defeat Lyra Valkyria since she became the inaugural WWE Women's Intercontinental Champion. So, we're going to get that. It's going to be pretty badass. Me, personally, I want to see Roxanne Perez. I want to see Roxanne Perez kind of get into it. She's had history with both Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. She was the one who defeated Valkyria for that NXT Women's Championship for her second reign. So I want to see something like that. I want to see just something new. Love Bayley. But if you can have Roxanne Perez get involved in this match and they can have like a triple threat match for the WWE Women's Intercontinental Championship, it would be it'd be great. It'd be pretty badass. I would love to see that invested on on the WrestleMania card. Next, we have the the main event. We have the WWE Women's World Heavyweight Championship with special guest Bianca Belair. Basically, Rhea Ripley, Sky, go at it. There was a couple times where, Bianca was attacked. She did not disqualify anybody, of course, until the last 10 where it ended in a no contest. And a double disqualification. Rhea Ripley went absolutely nuts, laid waste of Sky and Bianca Belair. This match is going to be a triple threat match. Pretty much, that not much of a surprise to really anybody, at this moment. So, this is something that the WWE needs. This is main event worthy, a storyline that's, kicking up right. You have the top 3 women's superstars in WWE, arguably. But you're going to have them kicking ass, taking names on the grandest stage of them all. Book my ticket. I'm down. I can't wait to see it. And, honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way. I want to see Ripley, want to see Sky, and I want to see the EST of WWE. All right, moving on. We have our WWE NXT preview. So let's go ahead and dig on into that. So grab your favorite snack, grab your favorite ice cold beverage, join me here in about 25 seconds. So, hey, do not go absolutely anywhere.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your favorite wrestling fan here, Eric Rodriguez, every Monday night live on the GSMC Sports Network, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, here to talk about the greatest thing in the world, professional wrestling. All the action inside and outside the ring, all the backstage curtain calls, all the rumors, all the dramas, all the conspiracy theories. We talk about it here on this show, 1010%. We talk about superstar, inactive statuses, injury updates. We talk about contract negotiations, extensions, and new signings from promotions like WWE to AEW, to Ring of Honor to TNA, New Japan Professional Wrestling, Deathlock Professional Wrestling, Game Changing Wrestling, the NWA, for makes major news in the world of professional wrestling. We talk about it here on this show, 1010%. So do not be afraid. Do not forget to Superman punch that like and subscribe button to the show. All right, without further ado, we're going to talk about some WWE NXT. But before we do any of that, I just want to remind you guys to go ahead and hit up that super chat. Support us. We need you guys. We love you guys 1010%. And we love bringing you guys awesome sports content that you guys can stream, that you guys could definitely check out on a day-to-day basis. Get all your news. Get all your sports news from us. And it's absolutely FREE free, so do not be afraid. Give you the Eric Rodriguez guarantee. You will never, ever, 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 ever regret subscribing to such an amazing sports network to bring you all the sports content that you guys damn near yearn for. And we're here for that. We're here for that. Wrestling, baseball, basketball, football, you name it. We talk about it here. What if you got whether if you have a hot take or a question in terms of professional wrestling or just something you've been dying to get off your chest, here at the GSMC Sports Network, we are all ears. This show is all about keeping the conversation going, making sure you guys feel like you are part of the mix 1010%. So don't be shy. Drop your thoughts inside that chat, and if you really want to make sure your comment, question, or concern gets noticed, why not use that super chat box. Anything you guys put inside that chat box and you hit up that dollar sign is going to be guaranteed to be featured, talked about, debated about, maybe even take place of a segment on the show. 1,000 to 10%. So do not be afraid. Do not be shy. This is a great way to support our network. We definitely need you guys. 1,000 to 10%. Your super chats helps us keep the lights on all these amazing podcasts with all these amazing, enthusiastic, charismatic, caring podcasters who have one goal in mind: to make sure you guys are fully sports satisfied with all the content that you guys love so damn much. We are super grateful for each and every one of you guys, so do not be afraid to Superman punch that like and subscribe button. Also, you guys make a difference. 1,000 to 10%. So let's keep the conversation going. Let's keep this party going. Send in those super chats and those super stickers because you guys are super awesome, and together we will make sure this is the best professional wrestling podcast in the world. So don't be shy. Drop your thoughts inside that chat, and make sure you guys hit up that tips and donations link. Whether if you gotta you either like what I'm saying or you hate what I'm saying. I want to know what you guys are feeling. I just want to remind you guys to Superman punch that. No, that was slow motion. Superman. All right, I'm gonna stop being a dork. That was my last dorky thing of the podcast, by the way. I'm just kidding. You don't give a dorky wrestling fan a podcast. I'm a Disney dad as well. I got 2 daughters and a little boy. So I'm not afraid to kind of jump out of my skin a little bit. Kind of be a little bit of dorky. I just want to make sure you guys are smiling. 1,000. I saw that smile. I'm just kidding. No, not trying to get weird with it. That was the last time I was being a dork. Let's go and dig on into some WWE NXT. All right, we are gearing toward another awesome episode of NXT. I can't wait to watch it. Obviously, it's tomorrow on the USA Network. If you miss it, you can stream it live on Tubi. Well, not live, but you can, check it out. Surprisingly, we didn't really get a lot of, what's going to happen on NXT. Not at all, actually. So I was digging a little bit, basically based on what happened on, on NXT last week. I'm basically going to draft what I think is going to happen this week. But the only match that we have already written in stone is going to be Shawn Spears defending the NXT North American Championship against the up-and-coming, the Revolution that is Ricky Saints. I always want to say Starks. If I say Starks, do not be mad at me. I definitely think this is going to be a great match. Obviously, main event. It's going to be the main event. Both these guys former AEW stars, and they're gonna go at it in the WWE ring. I feel like that is ultimately badass. I love that. And then this guy will probably prove dividends. I feel like Ethan Page will come out and cost Saints the match. And obviously starting a feud between them, because right now you have Shawn Spears with the culling. And it really doesn't need Starks. So dang it, I did it. I told you I would do it. Saints, you really don't need Saints there right now. Right now, Saints is still kind of being, built up as a WWE superstar. And, a guy who went from AEW, achieved absolute greatness on the NXT roster. It's Ethan Page. Ethan Page has been in and out of wrestling for decades. He is definitely, he's paid his dues. He's paid some time in the independent wrestling circuits. Also, he used to wrestle in TNA, I believe. I think he used to wrestle with Josh Alexander, or on a different promotion. But AEW as well. So if there's anybody that's going to kind of help Saints kind of get into the rhythm of things, how things happen in WWE, it's going to be Ethan Page. So I would rather see that match going on, I feel like, with Shawn Spears holding that NXT North American Championship. I feel like he could ultimately kind of be in storylines elsewhere. You don't really need to, I feel like they did ultimately kind of push Saints and Spears, a little bit too quick. I thought, it was going to be at least a couple of months. But now, NXT Stand and Deliver season is here. Why not triple threat match for the NXT North American Championship would be an absolute bombshell. And of course, the underlying information of that is that these three ultimately, they left AEW for greater pastures in WWE. And, being brutally honest, I love Shawn Spears. Obviously he was, the Ty Dillinger, what is it? Something 10? Perfect 10? 1, 2, 3. When he made his way back to WWE, he's been, killing it. Kind of under, he was injured a little bit. Obviously, he had an arm injury. You see his arm in a sling every week on NXT. But this is what NXT needs right now. You need Ethan Page, you need Shawn Spears, but ultimately you need this guy, Ricky Saints. The fans absolutely, they love him. They love him 1,010%. So, a title run so quick? I don't think so. Maybe, just maybe, finds a way to get it done at WWE NXT Stand and Deliver. I'll buy it. I feel like that would work. But not on NXT this Tuesday. I'm sorry, Ricky, but you will not be holding the NXT North American Championship when the night ends. What's going to happen with Fatal Influence? Recently, you saw Fallon Henley lose her rematch for the NXT Women's North American Championship. And, recently, Jason Jane, she lost on TNA. I think she was there on TNA this Thursday. Who did she lose to? Oh, my God. Not Masha. It wasn't Masha. Was it Masha? I think it was. The TNA Knockouts World Champion. This group, full of talented stars. Of course, Jane, Nyx, Henley. Something needs to happen with these girls. Heading toward WrestleMania season. Well, we are in WrestleMania season. NXT Stand and Deliver season. I don't want to call it I ultimately kind of trashed this group before they kind of got started, and I feel kind of bad because, I was like, okay, here we go. We got Pure Fusion Collective. Once again, 3 amazing, talented women come together thinking that I was hoping that, Zoe Stark, Shayna Baszler, and Sonya Deville would do something in WWE. And then, with Jane and Henley and Jasmine Nyx, I was like, okay, cool, what's going to happen? Ultimately, to find out, I don't know if it's WWE creative story writing or, I don't really see these girls making much of a difference. Fallon was a good NXT, Women's North American Championship. No one can take that away from her. In the women's division, I feel like, Jada Parker's kind of falling off a ledge a little bit. Keilani Jordan is, too mixed up in her own head. Izzy Dame, I feel like she's going to get more bookings in the future. Nikita Lyons, Carmen Petrovich, a lot of these girls are, I know Raw and SmackDown, they need some ultimately developing superstars within the organization, within the show. If you had Fatal Influence debut on SmackDown after WrestleMania, I personally think that would be great. You kind of have like a younger roster. Charlotte Flair, at this point, I didn't think she was going to beat Tiffany Stratton, but week after week after week, she's grilling Tiffany, and Tiffany honestly is kind of showing WWE that maybe she's not ready. So, to hold that WWE Women's Championship. And she's had one hell of a run, too. If Tiffany Stratton loses against Charlotte Flair, which she kind of ultimately, hinted at on SmackDown, she kind of gave herself a little bit of an undercover out. She's like, oh, if I lose against the greatest wrestler, women's wrestler, with all the prestige and accolades that is Charlotte Flair. Personally, one of her idols, since she came to WWE, she has always, she's admired Charlotte Flair. That's kind of a cool little fangirl match that they're going to have, obviously, keeping it on, keeping kayfabe. If you have Fatal Influence debut in SmackDown, I personally wouldn't see I don't see the problem with that. Then you have Charlotte Flair, Stratton, Michin, B-Fab. Nia Jax has been nowhere to be found. Candice LeRae. What is going on with Alexa Bliss? Then you have JC Jane, Fallon Henley, Jasmine Nyx come into the fray. You have the Secret, Hervis, the WWE Women's United States Champion Chelsea Green with Alba Fire and Piper Niven. I don't think that storyline's going really anywhere at this point. But if you kind of had these girls debut on SmackDown, it feels like it would be the right decision. Because right now in NXT, I feel like they're just lost, and I would rather see them within a purpose than not seeing them at all. Tatum Paxley, Gigi Doling, maybe potentially, challenging for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles ever since Raquel and Liv Morgan became champions. They haven't defended yet. I could be wrong. I don't think they have. In NXT, if you kind of see the tag team division kind of heat up a little bit, obviously Zarya and Sol Ruca as well, who actually defeated Paxley and Doling not too long ago. This is something that needs to happen. The women's division has been, it's sacred in WWE. Mostly when I talk about NXT on this show, I'm talking about these amazing, gifted, athletic girls who give their 1,010% to the company, and you can see it. Definitely, you can see represented inside the squared circle every given night on NXT. So I would love to see Zarya and Sol Ruca pick up some gold. I do. Having them kind of float around Raw, SmackDown, and NXT would be pretty badass, especially with how, with Zarya coming into the picture. I feel like they need championships. Sol Ruca has been ready for a championship. I thought she was going to win that ladder match, but of course, Keilani Jordan did. To crown the inaugural WWE Women's NXT North American Champion. But then again, I kind of feel for the meta girls here. Jakara Jackson, Lash Legend, pretty badass, has rapidly become one of my favorite women's tag team in general, with the men's division as well. I'm excited to watch them work. Zarya and Sol Ruca, bright future. I definitely want to see something grow within this women's division. Gigi Doling and Tatum Paxley would be an interesting mix, but it's going to be hard to take the titles off of Liv and Raquel, especially after they defeated Bianca Belair and Naomi, with this Jade Cargill storyline kind of lingering over. Liv Morgan, Raquel, they're the girls right now. They're the girls on Monday Night Raw. I don't honestly see any girls that are that much more interesting on the Raw roster, and I'm not trying to sound mean. I do like Lyra Valkyria. She's cool, but like I said, you haven't seen Zoe Stark. You have not seen Shayna Baszler, being featured on WWE Monday Night Raw TV. And basically everything's kind of circulated around Belair, Ripley, and, Io Sky. Maxine Dupree was seen on Monday Night Raw recently, basically asking about her future in WWE. So maybe we see a different side of Maxine Dupree. But if she keeps up this Alpha Academy attitude, I feel like, she's going to lose, So I definitely want to see something grow within this women's tag team division. Speaking of the women's tag team division, we got the men's, who's going to challenge Nathan Frazier and Axiom for those NXT World Tag Team Championships. Tyson and Tyreek picked up a huge victory over Hank and Tank, but Hank and Tank, they did a really good job. And also you have Josh Briggs and Inumura that are, they had one hell of a match against Fraxium. I thought it was pretty badass. It was a great match. So maybe we might see them triple threat, maybe Fatal 4-Way might find a way to kind of get something where, maybe OTM, Tavion Heights, and Miles Bourne of the No Quarter Catch Crew, who's been kind of recently been off of WWE TV as well. I just want to see something better. Stacks, we got Tony D'Angelo. Does Tony D'Angelo trust his right-hand man, Stacks Lorenzo, the underboss? I love this storyline. I love, Tony D'Angelo, and I love the family so much that I hope that this, doesn't turn into a feud that they're going to fight at NXT Stand and Deliver. I know last year we had Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes, but, I love the family. I hope they don't break them up. What's next for Stephanie Vaquer? Well, Jordan Grace is probably going to challenge for the NXT Women's Championship. Doubt the North American Championship. If she does, she will win. I feel like if she challenges for the NXT Women's Championship, she will lose. Are they going to keep the tag team? Are they going to keep the titles ultimately? Are they going to keep them not undisputed? That's not the right word. Damn it. Are they going to keep them linked together? No, that's not the right word as well. Are they going to keep them together? No. Unified. Are they going to keep them unified? I feel like it's dumb. I feel like something needs to change, and hopefully that's the change. Maybe Jordan Grace wins the NXT North American Championship. Next, we got Trick Williams. Is he a part of Dark State? I feel like Dark State, Retribution 2.0. No, I'm not trying to be mean. Trying to go for like a Shield with these, gifted, young, talented wrestlers. Why not have Trick be the leader? Why not? That's something that I don't think they've attacked him yet. They've attacked Javon Evans, Obafemi, maybe doing his dirty work. Trick Williams is obviously not the same guy we knew once when he lost that NXT championship. If he becomes a champion, takes it off of Oba, which is, I'm not too sure because I feel like, Trick Williams is going to take on Javon Evans. Or we might get a triple threat match for the NXT championship at Stand and Deliver. And that's when we truly find out that Trick Williams is actually the leader of Dark State, which would be an absolute bombshell, which would be pretty badass, which would be, pretty cool. I would personally love to see that. Poor Javon Evans, though. Poor Javon Evans. Who's going to be the next challenger for, Obafemi's NXT World Heavyweight Championship? Excuse me. But then again, he was the North American champion for quite some time, so you can't be too mad at me for messing that up. The NXT World Heavyweight Champion looking for a challenger. Like I said, Trick Williams, Javon Evans would ultimately be super badass. I would love it. I can't wait to see it. I feel like it would be absolutely great, 1,010%. All right, guys, so hey, do not go anywhere. We're going to jump on into our new next segment. We have AEW Dynasty predictions. We're going to get into each match. We're going to talk about some possibilities. I'm going to go ahead and fix that right quick because I am OCD like that. And, we're going to get into it. So grab your favorite snack, grab your favorite ice cold beverage. You're going to be here in about 25 seconds. So, hey, do not go anywhere.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your favorite wrestling fan here, Eric Rodriguez, every Monday night live on the GSMC Sports Network, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time here to talk about the greatest thing in the world, professional wrestling, all the action inside and outside of the ring, all the backstage curtain calls, all the rumors, all the drama. We talk about, conspiracy theories in terms of storylines. We talk about superstar and active statuses, also injury updates. We also talk about promotions like WWE to AEW, New Japan Professional Wrestling, basically anything in terms of the world of professional wrestling. If it makes major news, we talk about it here on this show, 1,010%. So do not be afraid to Superman punch that like and subscribe button to the show so you guys can get some notifications when we go live or when we publish new content. All right, without further ado, we have some AEW Dynasty. Let's go ahead and dig on into it. It's going to be good. Last Dynasty was actually pretty badass. Swerve Strickland winning the AEW World Heavyweight Championship was super cool. But this match, this card only had 6 matches on it, which is not like AEW, which is definitely not like AEW. We recently had Grand Slam Australia, I think it was. I think we had Grand Slam Australia, which was a bombshell, which was pretty badass. But Dynasty is definitely one of AEW's top pay-per-views of the year. So it's live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A lot of fans out there out in Philly. So, I feel like it's going to be good. It's going to be great. First match, we have a triple threat match for the AEW International Championship. Speedball Mike Bailey, Kenny Omega, and Ricochet. This match is going to be pretty cool. You're going to get a lot of unique offense between the three individuals. This is going to probably get a "This is awesome" chant within the first 5 minutes of it. I feel like it's going to be badass. But ultimately, my prediction is Kenny Omega retains the AEW International Championship. They're building up toward unifying that International Continental Championship with one of the greatest feuds in professional wrestling with Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega. At All In, that's a money-making match right there. Love Ricochet. I feel like he's going to be absolutely arsenal in this match. He's going to put on a great... And same with Speedball. Oh, my God. I love Speedball Mike Bailey. After coming to AEW, I thought this is going to be good for him. Right now, Ricochet's character, with this whole feud with Swerve... Not really, I feel like if Ricochet was going to be that much of a heel, maybe you should have put a title on him, maybe. But right now he kind of seems like just like that laughing clown. Because I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that, because I had high hopes for Ricochet when he left WWE, because ultimately I felt like Triple H, Vince McMahon, whoever, Pritchard, they wasted Ricochet. I thought he was gonna do better things in WWE, but hey, you can't really blame it there. Now he's in AEW. I feel like he will become some kind of a champion within 2025. And then you got the newly acquired Speedball Mike Bailey from TNA. When he left TNA, I was like, okay, where is this guy going? I have to make sure I pay attention to all his whereabouts. I want to see this man wrestle again. Speedball Mike Bailey. But they can't take down Kenny Omega. And here's why. I feel like they are building up a match with Okada and Omega for the unification of this title, because at this point, why even have two mid-card titles? Why? Then you have the Ring of Honor, then you have Ring of Honor, New Japan Professional Wrestling, then you have, the CMLL. I feel like having two mid-card titles is kind of a waste. And I know you also have the TNT Championship as well. So, and the TNT Championship so far has been kind of booked better than the International Championship. Well, you know what? Then again, that's not true, because I did like it when Will Ospreay won it. I thought that was pretty badass. Kenny Omega obviously dethroning Konosuke Takeshita of the Don Callis family. So I feel like it does pay its, dues. But at the end of the day, you can kind of mesh up a storyline with, Okada, Omega, Callis family, and it's, I feel like it'd be great for AEW. But out of this match, I have Kenny Omega retaining. Next, we have the AEW World Women's Championship. Toni Storm, the timeless Toni Storm, takes on the rising powerhouse heel of Meagan Bayne. I feel like Meagan Bayne needs to win, mostly because, you kind of have to have the women's division, which has kind of been a little lackluster lately. You need to have these younger, new faces kind of get a little bit of love, because AEW is kind of ultimately notoriously known for, you have rising young women stars, and then you would just have them lose and then kind of fizzle out in the mid-card title picture somewhere. Now that you kind of have Mercedes Moné as a TBS champion, and you don't really see it going away anytime soon. Tony Khan loves his Mercedes Moné. Having the AEW Women's Championship, I do love the timeless Toni Storm. Definitely well deserving. Maybe Mariah May comes back, screws over Toni Storm, and you kind of have a, part 3. I think it's part 3. Yeah, it's part 3. Each of them, I think they're 1-1 against each other, so they've each won one. No, that's not. Oh God, I feel like they did have that tiebreaker, which was the Hollywood ending, but I could be wrong. I feel like this Mariah May Toni Storm storyline has not really, it's not going anywhere. So, having the title won by Meagan Bayne would be pretty, I want to be fully for it. and maybe that's the reason why I'm having such a huge obligation of I'm kind of having a battle within myself. I want to tell myself that Meagan Bayne is the right choice to dethrone Toni Storm, but then again, Toni Storm's just so damn good. She's just such an amazing champion. But then if Meagan Bayne doesn't win, who's going to be the next one to do it? I'm 50-50 right now. 50-50 between Storm and Meagan Bayne. But, just kind of get the slightest edge, I'll give it to Toni Storm here. I'll say 51% Toni Storm's going to retain the AEW Women's World Championship. 49% says Meagan Bayne becomes the new. But, it's right there split in the middle. We have the AEW World Trios Championship, rated FTR, going up against the Death Riders pack, Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. They've had those titles for quite some time. You kind of have this story breaking up between, do you want to break up rated FTR? No, not rated FTR. Do you want to break up FTR? You have Dax Harwood, turn on Adam Copeland or Cope. That that storyline could do well within a couple of within some time, but then again, I don't really see that being the better option. Cope was so freaking close of winning that AEW World Championship against Jon Moxley. It was so close, so freaking close. That Full Gear, damn it was so close. Revolution. I personally think you got to give the titles to rated FTR here. I do love the Death Riders, and they've had, the whole story between Jon Moxley and everybody basically going up against everyone in the AEW locker room has been, it's been good. It's been cool and all that. Something needs to give, though. And, I would rather have, I feel like either Jon Moxley loses the championship at Dynasty, or, you have the Death Riders. And as of right now, you kind of have to have the Death Riders. I feel like, after they lose this match, that's when maybe you'll start seeing the Death Riders implode a little bit. Maybe you start seeing, a little bit of, confliction between Wheeler Yuta and Jon Moxley and the whole gang. Then you have, Wheeler Yuta totally frustrated and, he's sick of being treated like crap by John. So then, he tries to stand up for himself. And, of course, he gets, kind of rubbed out of the Death Riders there. And, maybe that's... But I feel like the rated FTR... I know Dax Harwood, obviously frustrated with Cope. Frustrated even with his own partner, too. But I feel like they need to win these trios championships. I would love to see that more than anything. Next, we have a TNT Championship, no time limit, no outside interference. Maybe this is the reason why there's only 6 matches on this card. We're going to get essentially kind of like an Iron Man match between, Daniel Garcia and Adam Cole, which is going to be good. Nothing against that whatsoever. But, are these two superstars entertaining enough? Can they put on a motion picture inside the ring for that much time? I feel like they could. I'm not, not hating, not trying to throw any, kind of baggage anywhere. I do like Daniel Garcia. I do like Adam Cole. I feel like these two guys are going to have an amazing instant classic match at Dynasty. Possibly the match of the night here. And I'm super excited. Can't wait to see it. No outside interference. So we're going to get straight up gentleman's draw in a wrestling match. I can't wait to see what happens. Coming out the victor. There has to be the victor. I have Adam Cole coming out on top. I do. And nothing against Daniel Garcia. He's been one hell of the TNT Championship, obviously dethroning the scapegoat Jack Perry, who's recently been, nowhere to be found, along with the Young Bucks. So we have to have the Undisputed Kingdom win some gold. I do. I feel like eventually maybe they'll wind up back on top. Roderick Strong, maybe Kyle O'Reilly challenge for those AEW World Tag Team Championships with the Hurt Business. Maybe, maybe not. But we just need something different. The TNT Championship picture, you don't really see it that much on Dynamite, which I watch Dynamite predominantly. I watch, Collision here and there. Not that I'm hating on Collision or Rampage, but I don't know. Dynamite's just, Wednesday nights, Collision, Rampage, Friday nights, Saturday nights. The kids, they stay up past their bedtime. You can't sneak away and watch wrestling, after their bedtime at 8 o'clock. So yeah, I have Adam Cole winning this match pretty soundly, and I feel like it's going to be a match of the night. Next, we have Jon Moxley defending his AEW World Championship against Swerve Strickland. You know, Swerve won this title at Dynasty against Samoa Joe. So would it be nice little, poetic justice, a little bit of irony here of Swerve Strickland, beating Jon Moxley. But I know what's gonna happen, and it kind of sucks. You're gonna get some Hangman Adam Page interference, and after the feud with Hangman and MJF kind of went under, now you have Swerve with this new chapter that him and Hangman want to write, which is cool and all. But the AEW World Championship, a lot of people claim that Darby will kind of pull up the upset and defeat Jon Moxley, become the AEW World Champion. And that could work. That could work. I know right now he's kind of scaling the mountains of Everest right now. But at Texas All-In, that would be probably going to be when Jon Moxley loses the championship, being brutally honest. And I don't think it's going to happen on Dynasty. I would love to see Swerve become a 2-time AEW World Heavyweight Champion. Maybe sometime later within the picture, maybe you have Hangman Adam Page get involved and you see those the three men go at it in a triple threat match at All In. But I don't know. I just don't see Jon Moxley, because I feel like when he loses the championship, not that the Death Rider storyline isn't appealing, or not that it's not popular, not that it's not been entertaining on the brand. But, Moxley holding the AEW World Championship is just perfect. And, he's in charge of his own storyline writing. He knows that for him to lose the championship, this is something that needs to be astronomically, out of this world. You need to have this, justice all planned out. You know what I mean? You need to have this ultimately, make sense. And, Swerve coming in, he just had that badass rivalry with Ricochet. And now, he's coming after Jon Moxley. It just doesn't really make sense right now. It doesn't make sense for Jon to lose the championship. Like I said, Jon Moxley's in charge of his own creative plans. He knows that. He wants to lose. I feel like he does want to give up the AEW World Championship, but he's like, you know what? It just has to make sense. He sees how the championships have been thrown around with not just AEW, with all wrestling promotions, and sometimes it doesn't really seem like, it sticks, or it doesn't really create a lot of credibility amongst the wrestling universe. So he's a smart man. When we see it coming, maybe we'll see it coming from a mile away, maybe we won't. But I don't think Swerve Strickland at this time is going to be the new AEW World Heavyweight Championship holder. But AEW Dynasty, do not miss it. It's going to be this Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you check it out from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And it's going to be good. Something about AEW pay-per-views, I love them. I love them 1,010%. I think they're great. And, definitely money worth spending. All right, guys, so hey, do not go anywhere. We have Seth Rollins becoming a sports journalist. We're going to talk about it here on this show. So grab your favorite snack, grab your favorite high school beverage, and join me here in about 20 seconds. So, hey, do not go anywhere.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC. To access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your favorite wrestling fan here, Eric Rodriguez, every Monday night live on the GSMC Sports Network, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Here, talk about the greatest thing in the world, professional wrestling, all the action inside and outside the ring, backstage curtain calls, all the rumors, all the drama. We talk about superstar and active statuses. injury updates, contract negotiations, extensions, and new signings. We talk about everything from AEW, WWE, Ring of Honor, TNA, GCW, Deathlock Professional Wrestling. We talk about it here on this show. We even jump back in time, talk about some of the historical values of WWE, WCW, ECW, the NWA. We talk about it here on this show, 1,010%. So do not be afraid. Superman, punch that like and subscribe button to the show so you guys can get some notifications when we go live and when we publish new content. So make sure you guys be part of this bloodline from the GSMC Sports Network. Do not miss it. Give you the Eric Rodriguez guarantee that you will not regret subscribing to such an amazing sports network. All right, we got Seth Rollins becoming a sports journalist. I'm for it. 1,010%. I feel like he's great on the mic. The way he mostly connects to the audience is something that I highly admire with Seth Rollins. Like he, when he cuts promos inside the ring, or maybe, you see him in an interview, like the way he, the tone of his voice, he's just so relatable. That's just that's just something that Seth Rollins definitely, that's what he has that could definitely help propel him to a career in sports journalism. He's admitted that he, that's something that he wants to get into. Obviously, professional wrestling. You put your body through highly excruciating pain, a lot of chances to, get hurt, obviously, knock on wood, and thank God that nothing bad has ever happened to him or other wrestling stars. But in some instances, some things I've had to look at, with Chris Bay, also, with, Darren Drozdahl, like you've seen a lot of bad injuries inside the ring that, ultimately kind of, if you ultimately plan on being a professional wrestler, which is cool, you can have that dream. But then again, like if you don't really have a backup plan, or if you don't really share other perspectives or any kind of hobbies, that could ultimately lead you, kind of boned, because if you get, your body's basically your meal ticket. And then something bad happens to you, you have a bad ACL tear and you can't do what you used to do anymore. What are you going to do next? You basically, it's like a death ticket, Can't make money for your family. That's out of the picture. You can't do what you love doing. Can't really go on every single day, staring life in the face with a smile because you know that you're not really doing what you love, which is professional wrestling. And something that Seth Rollins loves is football, National Football League. Seth Rollins was a guest host on the NFL Network's Good Morning Football. He has future aspirations to move into the sports media world, which is pretty badass. He's the top wrestler in WWE. He's a massive Chicago Bears fan, even like during the seasons. I follow Seth Rollins on Twitter or X, whatever you like to call it. And he, when he tweets, I hate football because, the Chicago Bears. It's not easy to be a fan of the Chicago Bears. From higher ups, from GM to coach, Matt Eberflus wasn't really the answer there. Then you have a star quarterback coming from USC. I almost said UFC. That would have been crazy. Caleb Williams, and then you got DeAndre Swift. The Chicago Bears had a pretty loaded roster. They started out the season, I think 4-2, 4-1, and they were rolling. They were doing great. And then ultimately Chicago caught up on being Chicago. And, things happened. There was even reports that there was drama in the locker room, and it was just, it all started with that, the Washington Commanders Hail Mary, which is, pretty crazy. But that day, that was a crazy game. That's when, once when, Seth Rollins would tweet, I hate football. Because, if you're a fan of a losing franchise, I'm a New York Giants fan. The Eli years were great, and lately we've just been the laughingstock of the NFL, with that terrible contract signing with Daniel Jones. Basically, we put our faith in Daniel Jones and gave Saquon Barkley to the Philadelphia Eagles, our division rival, which is absolute garbage. But, Joe Shane, what the hell, man? Something that Seth Rollins definitely does with the WWE fans, much like the NFL fans, is kind of create this kind of relatability to them. A lot of us, we are, there's only one team that wins the Super Bowl. So then the rest of the teams are kind of like, they're aching fan bases, ready to get back on top. And if there's any NFL fans that's been suffering more, it's probably Chicago Bears fans, and it's, ultimately pretty crazy. But his ability to console his feelings with every Bears fan is absolutely uncanny, and it's super awesome, super impressive. He spoke about when his career is up, he wants to move into the sports media world. Obviously, he was a co-host on NFL Network's Good Morning Football, which was on March 24th to the 26th, which airs it airs every Monday 9 a.m. Eastern time. So if you're not a fan of that show, go ahead and check it out. And WWE, the great thing about this is WWE is fully behind Seth Rollins hosting a Bears podcast. Why can't these professional wrestlers, like I was mentioning before earlier in the segment, a lot of the times, if you rely a lot on your body and something happens, obviously, God forbid, you're kind of left on your arse, after, something happens, you kind of need to get into something, you kind of need to have to share a passion with, somewhere for you can connect with the fans. And if Seth Rollins hosted a podcast, oh my God, that would be pretty badass. It'd be super cool. I could see him hosting the Bears podcast, talking about topics such as, the GM Ryan Poles' draft plan headed into the draft. What is he going to do to address the O-line, the D-line, maybe pick up Ashton Genty. And also he can interview, Ben Johnson, the new Bears head coach, also, Caleb Williams. And I just feel like it makes sense right now. If you have a high-end football guy like Seth Rollins, why not let, you've seen a lot of WWE superstars kind of stem off and start their own thing a little bit. You have Stephanie McMahon starting her own talk show. You have the Broken Skull sessions with Stone Cold Steve Austin. You also have, the Celtic Warrior workout with Sheamus, where he works out with WWE superstars on YouTube, and they post it on there. You could do something like that, definitely with Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins, he obviously knows his stuff. He's a huge football fan, not just a Bears fan. Last year he was actually seen, I think it was at an Indianapolis Colts game or something like that, where he was tossed into the crowd. And it was kind of crazy because, I have friends who are NFL fans, and they were like, oh my God, look at this guy who got thrown over, during the Bears game. And I was like, dude, that's Seth freaking Rollins, man. And they're like, who? And I was like, guys, and I feel like it's pretty badass. I think it wasn't he tossed over by Pat McAfee? I think he was. No, I'm not too sure. Not gonna put my name out there. And no, it was it was pretty cool. I would but then again, I'm a wrestling guy, and even as a wrestling guy, as a football guy, even as a baseball guy, basketball, college sports, hockey, whatever you name it, you can kind of hear when somebody speaks. They sometimes they seem like, they got it. They got what it takes to keep the fans. A lot of times in terms of journalism, you apply to a job and, you get the degree. Sometimes the degree's not good enough. They want experience. Sometimes experience is not good enough. They want the degree. But ultimately, if you kind of have a guy who has that voice, who has that, who has that ultimately that it factor of storytelling, which is damn near, if you have somebody hooked, you're a good storyteller, you can convince anybody of anything. You can definitely capitalize on Aristotle's 3 ethics of, 3 methods of persuasion, the ethos, pathos, and logos. And you can become a lawyer, you can do something like that. Yeah, you can become a school teacher, something that a lot of communication majors, and I kind of dealt with this too. What do I do with this degree? What do I do? Public relations, maybe marketing, it could happen. Communications within somewhere, within the company, yeah. But experience, the ability to tell the story, the ability to ultimately, kind of be this leading guide of knowledge. Seth Rollins does it in WWE. He does it on the mic. Fans are behind him. People literally chew and hold on to every single word he says. He can definitely do a Chicago Bears podcast. And it would be a hit. It would be a complete hit. I would love to see him kind of do something other than WWE. I know right now Becky Lynch, she's a award-winning author. She's pretty badass. Wrestling, it's not like the olden days where wrestling's all I got. Right now in this new day and age of this digital era in terms of social media, in terms of you can be your own content creator. You can upload things on YouTube. You can go live on, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. You become your own, PR representative. You can start your own show. You can start, doing this and that and the other. That's something that WWE has ultimately kind of embraced. Like, look at what's going on with the whole, you have superstars, posting on social media, keeping kayfabe. You have that little, comment war between Jade Cargill and Naomi. You have The Rock tweeting. You have the, John Cena posting. And it all plays into the storylines. And it's something that WWE has taken advantage of, and it's been absolutely great. It's been something that they definitely desperately needed. Seth Rollins had this to say. He said, and I quote, "I love hearing myself talk, and I love football." Seth Rollins, he's he's pretty cool. He's had some guest spots on popular sports shows. He's only 38 years old. Super young, super perfect for actually sports journalism and stuff like that. He has a friendship with the co-host Kyle Brandt, also a Chicago Bears fan. Seth Rollins is openly optimistic about the Bears' upcoming season. He's 1,010% sold on Caleb Williams. He thinks Ben Johnson is going to be the guy. And, love Seth Rollins, but being honest, and I know that this is not a football podcast, it's a wrestling podcast, but so much talented teams coming out of the NFC. I feel like this Super Bowl is going to be up in the air. I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to take a step back. You've seen the Patriots do it. So, I feel like Patrick Mahomes will get to the Super Bowl, but I don't think within the next 2 to 3 years, being honest. And if Chicago Bears could finally, tune things up to make things work, to make things great, then all power to you. But just make sure you have my man Seth freaking Rollins on the mic, because he was great on Good Morning America, not Good Morning America, Good Morning Football. He's probably had been on Good Morning America. That's how great he is. But if he becomes a Chicago Bears podcast host, I would love to watch it. Mostly because Seth Rollins is pretty badass and one of my favorite wrestlers, and I can't wait to see what he does with his future in sports journalism. So, hey, rooting for you, Seth. All right, guys, next we have Gable Steveson losing in an NCAA wrestling tournament. Has been deemed the biggest upset in wrestling tournament history. We're going to talk about it when we come back. So grab your favorite snack, grab your favorite high school beverage, and join me here in about 25 seconds. So, hey, do not go anywhere. And we are back with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your favorite wrestling fan here every Monday night live on the GSMC Sports Network, GSMC Podcast Network. 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, here to talk about the greatest thing in the world, professional wrestling. We talk about all the action inside and outside the ring, all the backstage curtain calls, all the rumors, all the dramas, all the conspiracy theories. We talk about superstar inactive statuses, injury updates, contract negotiations, extensions, and new signings. We talk about promotions from Ring of Honor, TNA, WWE, AEW, New Japan Professional Wrestling, Game Changing Wrestling, the NWA. We talk about Deathlock Professional Wrestling. If it makes major news in the world of professional wrestling, we talk about it here on this show. So do not forget to Superman punch that like and subscribe button to the show so you guys can get some cool notifications when we go live. Also, when we publish new content. So don't miss out on this amazing, GSMC Sports Network bloodline. Be a part of the bloodline, guys. Don't be late. Don't be late to the party, man. Don't be late like Tamatonga or Tongaloa. I'm just kidding. No. Moving on. So we're going to talk about the biggest upset in college wrestling history. That's what people are saying. But if you look about the opponent, obviously this was a match between Gable Steveson. He's a former Buffalo Bills player and WWE superstar. He was expected to capture his third NCAA national championship for the University of Minnesota. He won a gold medal at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. He was leading 4-2, 15 seconds left, only to be shocked by the U.S. Air Force Second Lieutenant Oklahoma State's Wyatt Hendrickson. Hit a takedown, winning the match 5-4. And it was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy because at the beginning of the match, I know this is a lot of people were kind of pissed off about this. I really don't see a problem. The guy, he served in the Air Force, but Hendrickson came out with the American flag draped around his shoulders. Usually that's reserved for people who's competed and actually won in the Olympics. So Gable Steveson was kind of giving him some bad juju from across the ring, but not the ring, from across the mat. He's kind of like, what are you wearing that American flag for? Also, Hendrickson, 1,010%. He was the only one to take down Steveson this whole season, this whole year. Gable Steveson was perfect. He's not allowed to take down with all his matches, only for it to become the first takedown. 15 seconds left. Bam. 5-2 victory. That is, that's nuts. But of course, you have to, congrats to Wyatt Hendrickson, obviously. Thank you for serving our country. U.S. Air Force, that's pretty bad ass. Definitely think that's pretty cool. Steveson won the gold medal, upsetting a 3-time gold medal winner in Tokyo. So, in a way, it kind of comes full circle, I guess. Steveson has been tied to the UFC in recent years after falling short in WWE and the NFL, but obviously nothing is official. It's been rumored that he's actually going to compete for the Olympic gold once again in 2028 with the Olympics in Los Angeles. So, this guy's not going anywhere. He ultimately kind of, he's heard about this being the biggest upset in NCAA wrestling history, which, it might as well have been. But then again, he was nothing short of being, kind of a stand-up guy. He was there to kind of be like, you know what, well, you guys take it as a shocker. This guy, U.S. Air Force, this guy's a badass. This guy's cool. He's strong. It's not much of a shocker. It's not much of a, why are you making it into such a big deal even though it's not? And usually people who say that are the person that doesn't want to make it a big deal, But he's right. He's right. Hendrickson is 1,010%. He's a dog. He's a dog, 1,010%. He deserves, obviously, winning the NCAA wrestling tournament. That's a gimme. He supports our country. He goes out there and he fights. He I don't want to say kills because sounds kind of weird. He goes out there and he basically busts his ass for a country that in recent years, not trying to make it about politics, but in recent years, this country, you look at the U.S. veterans, after serving their time, and most of them can't really establish, they can't really get stable employment and stuff like. Yeah, I know there's a lot of underlying factors to that. I get it. I just figured like, hey, if you're gonna go out there and fight for a country, they should compensate you or something like that, which they do. Like I said, not trying to make it into politics. They're not trying to derive too much from the point here. But basically the rant what you should get from this is you see a U.S. veteran, thank them. And maybe buy a meal for them or something like that. They went out there, they fight their arses off for you, man, just so you can sit down and do a wrestling podcast and look into the mic and look dorky as hell. That's me. Anyways, moving on. But after returning to professional wrestling, he's basically he's gonna win another gold. I feel like right now he kind of has. Some things kind of, lingering over his shoulder, that monkey on your shoulder per se. And I would love to see him compete in the 2028 Olympics. I would love that. John Jones from the UFC is mentoring Stevenson as of right now. He's been boxing. He's been doing, MMA, including Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Which is actually, out of all the martial arts that are used in MMA, having an arsenal of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, focusing on ground fighting and applying submission holds. Obviously, you control the position of an opponent, implementing many submission techniques like chokeholds, leg locks, and arm bars. So, I feel, if you perfect, not a striker, he is and he's not. He's not a kickboxer. He's not Israel Adesanya, not that. He's not really to be successful in the UFC, much like professional wrestling, you get it, college wrestling, all that. Protecting yourself is something that probably a lot of people kind of overcompensate a little bit in the UFC. I watch UFC here and there. And it's not like I'm coming off as this like, oh, I know which fighting styles are better. I just know common sense. You got to protect yourself. Sometimes you got to bring them down in the ground game. Some people get down on the ground and they're like, oh, God, my trainer, he just taught me, strike, kick. And then once when you get on the ground, you're like, oh, God, what do I do? How do I... And these guys are such tacticians inside of the octagon. Once when they got you down... Every move you make, they can literally turn it into a submission. Mastering in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is half the battle in terms of becoming a successful MMA martial arts fighter inside the Ultimate Fighting, octagon. Gable Steveson, he's there. John Jones, he's a bit of a badass. It's going to teach him what is right. I personally, the biggest upset in NCAA history. This is the biggest upset. He's going to be fine. He's going to, like I said, compete in the 2028 Olympics. He's going to fight in the UFC, hopefully one day, and I feel like he will do. He's going to be a UFC champion, definitely, without a doubt, future. Put it money line right now. Vegas, future UFC champion. Gable Steveson, right now. Bam, $1,000. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have that amount of money. Times be rough. I'm just kidding. Moving on. But ultimately, it was a great match. I watched it. I was actually at dinner with my family. We went to Red Robin. Yum. Not giving Red Robin a free advertisement there. But no, I was there and I was watching it and I was like, dude, that's the guy, that's the NXT guy, dude. That's the guy from the Buffalo Bills. And then, that happened and I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. I remember my wife's looking, she's like, what are you watching? I was like, yeah, I'm watching wrestling. She expected seeing WWE on, and she's like, what? And I was like, no, it's like amateur, wrestling. It's like wrestling. But it was, congratulations to Wyatt. And Gable Stevenson's going to be completely fine. Find him in the UFC in a couple years from now. He's going to be winning championships, kicking arse, taking names. So, biggest upset, it's cool and all, But, don't sell them short. Don't sell them short. All right, guys. So, hey, thank you for tuning into my show. Hope you guys had a great time. I always have a good time live every Monday night. Remember to Superman punch that like and subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter /X, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook for more content and updates. And make sure you guys check out all these amazing podcasts. If you're not a professional wrestling fan, we have a lot of other sports podcasts starting to sprout up. We have all these new, amazing, enthusiastic, charismatic podcasters who want to give you guys 1,010% free, awesome sports content. So make sure you guys subscribe to their shows as well. Like I always say, stay beautiful, stay safe, be happy, have a great week. But most importantly, love you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.